Welcome back to Lift You Up Inspiring Health Stories. I'm your host, Tamika Bickham. I'm the founder and chief storyteller of TB Media Group. For the purpose of this podcast, I am your health and happiness matchmaker. Now, before I introduce you to today's guest, you know what I'm going to ask you to do. If you haven't already, hit subscribe on YouTube, turn on those notifications, and connect with me on LinkedIn, because I'd love to stay connected with you. Now, today you are going to meet someone truly unique, truly special. Her name is Jen Bricker-Bauer. She was born without legs, and she was left for adoption, left at the hospital by her birth parents. Now, she went on to become an incredible athlete, a tumbler. Now she's an aerialist and a speaker, and a New York Times best-selling author whose mantra is everything is possible. Our physical, mental, and emotional health is not just a want. It is a need for happy lives and prosperous businesses. Lift You Up is the podcast where we share inspiring health stories from business owners who are fulfilling their purpose to live their healthiest lives and helping you do the same. From former TV reporter to marketing entrepreneur and content creator, I care about sharing stories that matter and stories that connect us. I'm your host, Tamika Bickham, your health and wellness matchmaker. Well, today I'm so excited to meet virtually for the first time, and welcome to the show, Jen Bricker-Bauer. So many titles and ways that I could describe you, so I'll save that for you, but I know you're a New York Times best-selling author. You are a performer. You're telling me about all the speaking you're doing. So tell us a little bit more for those who don't know you, aren't familiar with you, just who you are and what you do.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. I guess the shortened Instagram version would be author, aerialist, speaker.
Ooh, I like that.
But I've been doing all of that for the last, basically my whole adult life. Started out with performing, doing acrobat and aerial performing, then speaking came in, then my book came in, and then now I just have been going all around the globe, plane hopping and train hopping and all that for about 15 years, doing one of those three or all of them. And I was born without legs and put up for adoption, left in the hospital, and adopted by a family in the middle of nowhere in Southern Illinois, which is actually where I am right now. And I was just raised, I want to say I was raised normal, but I guess a better explanation would be me not having legs was never some big thing in my life for my family, for my teachers, for my friends. It was a part of me. It was part of who I am, part of who I was, but never some tragic thing. It was just what it was, and that was it. So good childhood, good community, great community. And my parents just they let me do the things that I was interested in doing. There was encouragement and not discouragement, which is everything, they spoke life into me, and people around the community did as well. So, yeah.
So going back to your first point, you were born without legs and left in the hospital.
Yes.
At what point did you find out that story?
That I was adopted?
Yeah. And that, I guess more specifically, that you were left at the hospital. I guess it was your parents to tell you?
Yeah, my parents, I always knew.
Okay.
My parents told me from as long as I can remember, which I think was actually very important for the rest of my life, because it was then never some big thing, I didn't have a big chip on my shoulder. They were very honest, very open about everything. My biological family was from Romania. I knew that. I knew that they just said, well, they probably did give you away because you didn't have legs, and they were raised in a different country, and they viewed people like you very, very differently, and you just have to kind of understand that it's just different, But my parents said, we prayed for you. You were our answered prayer. You were supposed to be with us, and it just, you don't have to be mad at them or hate them because you were supposed to be with us. And so they said it very just kind of matter of fact, how it was, and that was enough for me. I was like, oh, okay,
Yeah. I mean, that sounds like that was important that they did that.
Yes.
And handled it in that way. And also, like you mentioned, continued to further like encourage you to, like you said, breathe life into you, encourage you to pursue your dreams. So talk about those dreams, because I know reading in your bio that as a kid you were obsessed with gymnastics, which I'm guessing ultimately led you and inspired you to doing what you are doing now. So tell me about those passions and really the journey of what happened in your life from kind of childhood through your career.
Yeah, I love sports. I think I was just born an athlete. So naturally, I was always very strong, very good. I did softball, basketball, volleyball, power tumbling. All of these sports were with able bodied athletes. That was just normal for me. I didn't even know to say that I did it with, regular, like able bodied. I didn't even know that term, like it just was, I never considered another way. And because I just saw myself like everybody else. So in gymnastics, you have 4 events. And in power tumbling, it's the tumbling part, like the floor. And instead of it being a square, it's a long runway. And so then you do back handsprings and flips and twists and things like that. And so that's what I competed in for 4 years. And I won state championship one year in my division, and then went to Junior Olympics, which is, the whole United States. So that was a really big deal. Yeah. And I was the first person like myself without legs to ever compete in power tumbling. And so I didn't think it was that big of a deal at the time because I was younger, but that's when all of the TV and media started happening in my life, actually. People don't realize that because it was so long ago, but actually that's when it all started. So started as local, and then regional, and then national, and then international. I loved all of the sports, and it just, power tumbling was my favorite. And that definitely was always in me. And even though like I basically all through high school, I just stopped all my sports and got a little out of shape. And then when I moved from Illinois to Orlando, Florida to do an internship at Disney World. And I never moved back. So I just stayed. And that's where I met my performing partner, who ended up to be my performing partner. And he started teaching me aerial silks and refining my technique on trampoline and all this stuff. And so then we ended up creating two acts together, a silk act and a trampoline act, and started performing together. And then the next year, it happened all very, very fast. We were on tour with Britney Spears, featured acts, Madison Square Garden, Staples Center, 20,000 people, 40-some shows, North America, Australia. And so it was just...
And I went to that tour, by the way.
Oh, you did?
I'm a huge Britney Spears fan.
Oh,
so I've gotten onto pretty much all of her tours. So yes, I went to that tour. So this is fangirl moment for me. But
oh my gosh, that's so cool.
How did that opportunity come up?
We just met up with the guys who ran the whole tour and made the decisions, showed them our video of our act, and that was it. I mean, it was like very unorthodox. It was like a miracle that I got on the tour. And I was supposed to be on for the European leg. And then a bunch of stuff happened with Britney. And that's when the conservatorship started she just got freed from. So that's when it just started, and it prolonged ticket sales, and they lost money. And so they had to let go of acts. So they certainly weren't hiring any acts. And so the fact that I got on that next leg for North America and Australia was really honestly like a miracle. I mean, it was really just meant to be. It really was. Yeah.
Awesome. So this is, you said that's when things really started to move very fast. And I guess your performing career kind of exploded.
Yes. Up until that point, nobody really wanted to hire me. They were afraid. Because again, so here we are again, it's kind of the same formula. No one like me had ever done this. We searched everywhere. We were like, somebody without legs has had to have done this,
Meaning an aerial routine. Okay.
In the entertainment industry, either acrobatic or aerial, any of them. and we could not find anybody, anything, nothing. So nobody had seen someone like me. It was very doing this. So it was very like, they didn't know what to do with it, you know, and I get that. And so it was so new, and it was so hard to believe. People thought that when they saw a video of me doing the trampoline and flipping and all that, they thought it was CGI. Like they just couldn't, it was really hard for people to understand and then know what to do. Like, where do we put her? What do we do with it? Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
So nobody wanted to hire me because they were afraid of like how an audience would react. And they just, it was so new and such a thing. They just didn't know what to do with it. And so, when I got on tour with Britney as a featured act, this just blew the doors wide open. It changed everything. And then people all over the world wanted me to perform. And so that really changed things for me, for my career, definitely.
Were you prepared in some sense, considering that you had kind of had that media attention as you were, you know, kind of growing up and competing and being the first without legs to do the tumbling routines?
Yeah, I think some of it was just my personality and how I was raised, and I was just chatty and social. And then the other part is that I had done it so much already as a kid. And so I kind of learned all those things. I didn't even realize I was learning that. It just learned by doing, I guess. And so by the time I was an adult, yeah, a lot of it was just, I was kind of already, it was kind of already my thing, you know?
Where do you think your talent and this, you know, what seems to be a natural ability you have at this, where do you think that comes from?
Well, I think it was definitely given to me. I think I was born that way, that God just gave me that, you know, whether through speaking, performing, competing, through the book, through interviews, through whatever, through all of these, through all the travels I've done and all that stuff, it reaches people in such different ways, which is so awesome. And that's something I'm really grateful for. And that's knowing that that there's so much purpose in not having legs, and that's how it was designed. And I've seen that, like I've been living that. That's what keeps the longevity going. That's what keeps the sustainability, that it's not just about me. Seeing people just being moved and writing me messages, like very profound, very, very serious things sometimes, or just beautiful things. And it's so obvious that it's just so much bigger than me. And that's exactly what keeps it going for me.
I guess before you had that, let's say, what was your inspiration, or who was your inspiration? Because I'm hearing your story and you saying like looking for others who came before you, and you said you couldn't find a performer or a tumbler who had done this before, and that surprised you. But was there anyone that you looked up to or admired, or you drew inspiration from as you were, you know, growing up or going along on this journey?
Well, I would say before all of that started, when I was really young, I watched gymnastics on TV, and I was just drawn to one gymnast, Dominique Moceanu, and I was drawn to her. It kind of, so the whole, like the very first beginner tumbling class I took was about the same time as seeing her on TV for the first time. She looked like me and loved doing the same thing I loved. And so as a kid, that's enough. You know, that's enough to really draw you to somebody. And I knew that she was on Team USA, but I knew that her her parents were from Romania. And I knew that my biological family was from Romania. So there was like this, you know, that was really cool for me as a kid. Like really cool.
That's what you were able to relate to.
Exactly. Yes. And then right before I turned 16, my friend, who was also adopted actually, had found out, I don't know how or why, but she had just found out what her biological last name would have been. And now, up until that point, I never had I didn't have a big desire, or I didn't feel a big hole necessarily about needing to know about my biological family, because my parents had, like I said, told me so much that it was as if I was satisfied, like I knew enough. But when she found out what her biological last name was, just something kind of went off in me. Like, well, I wonder what my biological last name would have been. And it was, I mean, very odd because it did not match anything else. And even more odd that I would go home and ask my mom if she knew something that she hadn't told me about my biological family, because that's not in alignment with who my parents are and how they've acted. They didn't keep any secrets. They were the complete opposite, telling me everything up front. And so then she said that she actually knew something, and I was like, what? I didn't even believe it. I'm like, you don't know something. I mean, what could you know, And that's when she told me my biological last name would have been Mochianu. And I knew, of course, that's not a common name here. So I knew what that meant. And then that's when I found out that Dominique was my sister, like biological, full-blooded, so crazy.
Like, I just got chills. Okay, so you hear this, and then what happens? Like, what goes through your mind?
Yeah. Well, I go on her website to kind of do some investigating, or, just like seeing what's up. And then I see that I have another sister, Christina, who's younger than me and looks exactly like me. I mean, almost like twin level looks like me. And because we're only a year and 10 months apart. So we're also very close in age and look like twins, basically. And so then I, of course, wanted to meet them and went on a 4-year journey with a lot of failed attempts. And eventually, at the very end in December of 2007, I, through a lot of different things, got in contact with Dominique, wrote her a letter, and put pictures in it, put the legal adoption papers, copies of them, and all of that. And got a response after 2 weeks of waiting, which felt like forever. And then that next month, we had our first phone conversation. And Christina and I, my younger sister, had been texting, and like we had all these similarities. It was really as if it were twins being reunited, and we had all these things in common. We couldn't believe it. And then we all three met in May of 2008 for the first time. And so that was like, on one hand, like the buildup was the most intense part. At first, like, is this really happening? But then immediately it was like, in my spirit, it was just kind of like, yeah, like, we're sisters, obvious. I mean, we look so much alike, so there was this like undeniable similarities that you're like, yeah, I mean, we're sisters. But then, we're raised completely different. And yet through the DNA, unbelievable similarities.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Was it a surreal experience, being that you had kind of looked up to Dominique as a gymnast, and then realizing that she's your sister, now interacting in that kind of way? Like, I'm sure, I don't know.
Yeah. So on one hand, it was like surreal, and on the other hand, it was somehow normal. Like, I can't say normal, but almost like, so it was these two extreme things happening in your brain. That's why I'm like, I think I just glitched for a minute, it's a lot to comprehend in your mind,
It's probably cool to see how just the talents that, at least you and Dominique, I don't know if Christina as well had, are just like so ingrained in your DNA as far as what you excelled at in your careers.
Yeah, it's pretty mind-blowing. I always loved hearing about those stories, when you hear about twins that were separated at birth and they meet and then they have like led the same lives and all that. And so I always loved, hearing, and I was very fascinated. But then to have that happen to you in real life is so interesting. We were just like, I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe how much we look alike. I can't believe that you like this and that you like that. And just, there were just these things, that it was so fascinating to experience that.
Do you still keep in touch?
Yeah. We all live in different states,
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it was usually before everything shut down. I was traveling usually on a plane every week or every other week, going somewhere in or out of the country. So it was just easier. And I didn't have, we don't have kids yet, but I wasn't married, and they both have kids and are married. So it just made sense for me, like, oh, if I'm near Texas or if I'm near Ohio or whatever, I'll just bounce over and see you guys, and yeah, just try to stay in touch.
Thanks for sharing that story. Tell me, where are things in your career now? Like you said, you've been doing a lot more speaking now. Kind of fast forward, I guess, from the time that you were, kind of had that breakout year, I guess, when you went on tour with Britney Spears, and all that's really evolved, and how you see yourself in your career now.
Yeah. So from the Britney tour, it was just all over the world, all over, just 90 miles an hour. Eventually, my old performing partner and I separated, and I started doing solo performing and speaking more. That's when speaking really started coming in a lot. So, and then the performance, I created a solo, and that then took me to even more places all over the world, to over 23 countries so far, all over in different pockets. So many amazing experiences. And then my book came out. My book's in 11 languages, which has been such an amazing thing to see. It's how I met my husband. I was in Austria on a speaking tour. He bought my book, and then that's a whole story, but we don't have time, but it's awesome. And then everything happened fast, got married, and started speaking, got married in 2019. And immediately we're traveling all over the world speaking together. And we created an act as well together. And right up until the very day that everything shut down in March, and we were just constantly busy. And then now everything started picking up last year around August, more consistently picking up again with events and travel. And then we created a brand new act. He's a professional trombonist and opera singer, and I have been teaching him aerial. So we combined like all of our talents and made a new piece, which we performed in DC in November. And then so everything kind of got shifted around and canceled with the whole run of the shows. And then we came to Illinois because our place was rented out in LA already. So we're like, okay, what are we going to do? Well, we came here to the Midwest, and then like a couple phone calls later, we're like, all these doors open for us to speak all around Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, and we're booked every week just now into mid of March. And we're kind of blocking out a week or two to drive back to LA, get our stuff, move our stuff out of our apartment, U-Haul it back probably here to the Midwest, and buy a home maybe here just for like to stay here for a couple years, start having a family. That's kind of what we want to do now. But still traveling, speaking, and then still performing as well with this company, Omnium. That it's the Omnium Circus show, brand new show. And so I think that we're just going to be busy, and we still plan on doing everything that we're doing now once we have kids. We kind of knew that from the beginning. We knew that that was like our calling, that we're just going to be traveling a lot, and we'll have like a landing pad, a home to come and refresh, but then we'll always be back on the road. That's just kind of, it's just clear that that's what we're supposed to do.
You say everything with such like ease, with such peace, like despite all of these, challenges that have come your way, or challenges that some would see, that you faced from day one to having this career. And for you, it just feels like you've known your purpose from the beginning, and nothing feels like, the way you're explaining it to me, as though it was an obstacle. I don't know. How do you see that from your perspective? Because you mentioned that some people, like, it used to be weird when people would say that you inspire them. So how do you feel that you've been able to just so easily kind of lean into your purpose and who you are, and create so many opportunities for yourself?
Well, I mean, everybody has struggles along the way. We all do. That's our common equalizer. I've always had a very strong sense of purpose. I will say that. That's been something that I feel so like blessed to have, because that's something I need. Like for me, I really, I told my parents when I was 10 years old, and this seems so bizarre and like intense, but I just said, God has a huge purpose for my life and it's going to change the world. And I knew it. Like I said it like that. And I didn't know what, I didn't know how, I didn't know when, I didn't know any of that. But I did know that. And that's not normal, I don't think, you know. But as I've gotten older, that's what I mean. I've seen that. So I saw how there was purpose through something that everyone thinks is such a, like the worst thing about my life, being born without legs, or, you know, put up for adoption, those things. But those were the very things, like they had to happen that way. And that's the thing, is that they were meant to be that way. And through those very things is what I'm able to, through that like how I'm being used through my life to share with other people, to give them hope, to hopefully inspire or lift their spirits, or just share with them what I've experienced. And so that has really, being able to live that purpose and see that, that fills me like to an overflow. You know, so when everything shut down, that was really hard on me, like complete, because I felt that I wasn't being used. And I'm like, I have so much to give and so much to offer people, and I know I'm supposed to use it. And so that was very, very hard for me when everything was shut down. And I just wanted to be, you know, used. And it was the first time in my life that that had ever happened. And so that was a really big whoa kind of a thing. And so I'm so thankful right now to be busy and being used, not just busy for being busy, but like to be used with purpose.
It's such a powerful message, and such it, like you said, it is inspiring. So thanks for sharing that. I also want to ask you about the book. It's a New York Times bestseller. So tell us the name of it and where people can find it, what it's about.
Yeah, it's called Everything is Possible. And it's really, that's kind of how what I believe, you know, the rest of it's from a verse. It's from everything is possible. And then the rest of it is to the one who believes. And so I believe that the believe is the key to the whole sentence, you know? And so that just, it's been such a cool journey, like going through the book writing process, working with publishing company, working with a writer. It's a whole team of people, you know. It's not like I am so not that person to be doing that on my own, not even close. and then seeing it being honestly, the coolest part for me is that it's been translated in 11 languages. That's the most really interesting, cool thing for me, to see it be able to reach people in languages I don't speak, you know. That's just, yeah. And it's how I met my husband. So he bought it in German. That's his first language. And that's like a whole thing, you know. And so it's just opened so many, again, more possibilities, more opportunities. It's something that I can sign and people can have to take home after a speech or a performance. So it's just kind of, it's just another thing, you know. And I think my husband and I will write a book together in the future, probably in the near future. I think that will come in the next year or two, or 2 to 3 years maybe, something like that. And so I think that'll be really cool, another totally different chapter in life. And I think that'll be really nice.
I love that. I always like to kind of end on like a tip, an actionable tip that the audience can implement in their lives, like health or happiness related. But I feel like what might be applicable to you and that you can maybe help us or shed some light on is if someone doesn't feel like everything is possible, like maybe their own thoughts or their beliefs are getting in the way of what they want to achieve, is there anything that you would suggest, or anything maybe that you've even utilized in your own life when maybe you felt like, you know, that there was something that you weren't able to achieve that you wanted to, or a practice even that you implement in your life that, you know, helps you achieve all of your dreams?
A lot of people think that they're not significant or their lives don't matter so much, or they don't make so much of an impact, or they don't have so many followers, or they don't have a book, and on, right? So first I would say you're born for a reason. You're not a mistake. You're not an accident. You're here and you have purpose. And that's for everybody. And I would also say and love to encourage people that everybody has gifts and talents and abilities that they offer the world. And people don't even think that they have that. But I would love to encourage you to say that you do have that. You have something to offer the world with extreme value. And that value is equal to anybody else's that you think has the impact, the followers, the whatever. It's just different. It's just different. And thank God it's different, because that's would be boring, right? So
right.
It's I would love to encourage people with that, and like just to know that you have incredible value, that nobody is more important than you, nobody's gifts are more important than yours, and that I believe everybody is made and created to inspire and motivate. I know a lot of people think that it's just for certain people who are inspiring or whatever, but I really believe that everybody has that opportunity equally. It's just the believing part and the action part and the accepting that, like, and that's something that we all have to do on our own. So nobody can do that for us. So that can be a very difficult thing to do. I just reach people differently because I don't have legs and was adopted. And somebody else who has a totally different background, a different story, you're going to reach people differently than I would, and vice versa. And that's a good thing. It's practically and creatively good, just, and so, yeah, that's what I would really love to encourage people with on a practical level. And then just on like a in your spirit kind of level, is just to know that all of those things are true and that it's for all of us,
Absolutely. Such a great thing to leave people with. And lastly, how can people find you, connect with you, social media, website, all the things?
Yeah. It's, I have a growing YouTube channel, actually. I just hit 200,000, which is,
wow.
Yeah. I've not put as much effort in as like one would think. So the fact that has happened has been quite extraordinary. So I have this push-up video that like went super viral and has like 41 million views. So that's kind of what happened.
Yeah.
And which is
driving
so
the
funny.
traffic.
Yeah, so it's you can find it Jen Bricker or Jen Bricker-Bauer on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and jenbricker.com. I know websites are almost like, people don't go to websites every day. You go to your social media every day. So, but it still has its point. I get it. It still has its place. But the day-to-day is going to be the YouTube, the Insta, the Facebook. Yeah. So.
Got it. I'll make sure to link to all that below in the show notes. Jen, this has been really, really great. I appreciate you sharing your story, inspiring us, and giving us great tips to take with us into our day-to-day.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Make sure you go ahead and pick up Jen's book. Go ahead and find more about her online on her social media. She's got incredible content, an inspiring story. All of that, again, is below in the show notes. And also, make sure you connect with me if you aren't already. I'm all the places, but I'd really love to see you on LinkedIn and subscribe on YouTube, because we come back each and every week with new episodes, and I would hate for you to miss out. I'd also love for you to leave me a review. Let me know what you think, what you want to hear more of, and I'll make sure to give it to you. So until I see you back next week, because I know I'll see you then, stay happy, stay healthy.